علي بن أبي طالب عليهما الصلاة والسلام أما الليل فصافون أقدامهم تالين لأجزاء القرآن يرتلونها ترتيلا. صلوات بيجي محمد وآله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. In this segment of Khutbah Muttaqeen, Amir al-Mu'mineen is talking about the nightly prayers, recitation of Quran with tartil. We see that he says during the night, the Muttaqeen are the ones, they are upstanding on their feet, reading portions of the Quran and reciting it in a well-measured way, which is tartil. Pious people with the knowledge of great virtues and exalted rewards for nightly prayers make an effort to remain vigil during the night, a prayer which was an obligation on our Prophet, as Quran mentioned, وَمِنَ اللَّيْلِ فَتَحَجَّدْ بِهِ نَافِلَةً لَكَ عَسَىٰ أَن يَبْعَثَكَ رَبُّكَ مَقَامًا مَحْمُودًا. And keep vigil for a part of the night as a supererogatory devotion for you. It may be that your Lord will raise you to a praiseworthy station. Surah Bani Israel, verse number 79. So tahajjud, the word tahajjud, which appears in this particular verse, referring towards the nightly prayer, which is not wajib upon you and I, but it was wajib upon Prophet of Islam. And therefore there's high recommendation for it to be performed. Take a time during the night time, whenever you have possible, especially before Fajr prayers, so that you can go ahead and make this salat. And obviously there are high rewards which are discussed in the books of dua, supplications, as well as books of ahadith. We will spend a few minutes over here looking at what Imam ﷺ is mentioning. It also mentions at another place in Quran, in Surah Zumar, verse number 9, Allah praises those who do qiyam, stand up at night. He says, أَمَّنْ هُوَ قَانِتٌ آنَاءَ اللَّيْلِ سَاجِدًا وَقَائِمًا يَحْذَرُ الْآخِرَةَ وَيَرْجُو رَحْمَةَ رَبِّهِ. He said, is he who supplicates in the watches of the night, prostrating and standing, apprehensive of the hereafter and expecting the mercy of Allah? Of course, this is the person who does that. Also at another place in Surah Muzammil, verse number 6, Allah says, إِنَّ نَاشِئَةَ اللَّيْلِ هِيَ أَشَدُّ وَطْعًا وَأَقْوَمُ qila. Prayer at night leaves the strongest impression on one's soul, and the words spoken are more consistent. These three ayat, if you look, and there are many other ayat as well. Obviously, I don't want to just keep on giving ayat. To go ahead and a little bit explanation of what Imam said in this khutbah muttaqeen in regards to that these are the people, after having mentioned so many attributes about them, they said they spend their night vigil, praying, prostrating in qiyam, and reciting the verses of Quran. And then look at these three ayat in relation to that which Imam ﷺ is saying. We can come up and summarize that what is being mentioned over here is this nightly prayer. And nightly prayer, in the format that it is performed, obviously it contains the recitation of Quran as well. So when you combine, and this combination comes together, obviously it is giving an opportunity, a person, which we will mention as to what are the benefits that will be leading with it. But over here, it is worth mentioning that it does not mean you spend all of your night standing up. It does not mean that you spend all of the night without falling asleep. No, in other places in Quran, Surah Naba, it talks about وَجَعَلْنَا اللَّيْلَ سُبَحًا. We have created this night to be for a time for you to go ahead and take rest, to go ahead and sleep. Because there's coverage, there's the coverage of the darkness all over. So it is better that you, instead of doing some work, back in the day, they didn't have any lights, so they couldn't do any work at night. So it was something, and even today, a lot of people usually work during the day and sleep during the night. So it says, we've made this night time for you to go ahead and rest. So it's not contradiction of Quran where these ayat are saying these people who stand up at night. It doesn't mean that they are standing up all night long without blinking an eye or without falling asleep. If that was the case, then obviously the life of Prophet is not also looking at it from this perspective, free of other things. No, he's busy. He's a busy man, busier than some of us, more than us, because he has so many other responsibilities. And even at night time, when you have such responsibilities, you don't fall asleep because of the heavy weight of the responsibilities that you have. So in this regard, we see that Prophet was not also someone who was spending all of his night is standing up and performing the qiyam, and the same way he would be very active during the daytime. No, his body also required rest. He rested as well, and he did all of those things, and at the same time he remained vigil at night for time being. Also in Quran and other places it says, in Surah Muzammil or either in Surah Muddassir as well, قُمِ اللَّيْلَ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا, stand up at night only for a little while, for a little time, not for the whole night. So sometimes what happens is that we take these ahadith out of context, thinking that it is only referring towards those people who have nothing else to do. They're free, they're retired, and they're done with the worldly life now. They've earned enough, and they're in their retirement. They should be spending all of their nights performing. No, that is not the case. It is actually reflecting towards in the youth years, in the young age, at the time when you're still rejuvenated, at the time when you still have the energy to go ahead and perform these things and not delay it for a later time. Who knows, will you get to live that long when you'll retire and you'll have this opportunity? So obviously these ayat and this hadith of the sermon is not referring towards a particular time when you are retired or something of that sort. So we see vigil at night. First thing we need to understand that it's not the whole night, it's part of the night. Not the complete night, but it's part of the night. And we all know that Salatul Layl, in the format that we have come to know, the 11 rak'at which have been mentioned, it does not take more than 15 to 20 minutes. So if 15 to 20 minutes is something which is being asked from you to spend in your night. And the concept of night is also, I've explained before, that we have made up the concept of night, that night starts after midnight. No, if you don't have the opportunity to remain awake after midnight, you can even perform it after your Maghrib Isha prayers. This is something which it is only recommended to be performed closer to the Fajr prayers. That is again an opportunity. You wake up for Fajr anyway, get up 20 minutes earlier than the Fajr time, and you'll be able to perform this Salatul Layl. And you will see after having performed this, the nur and the illumination that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promises that comes out of an individual who performs, and inshallah we will count some of those things. Salawat Biji Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. We say all of these virtues of salat that is counted after 5 usul-e-din, the first thing that comes is salat. So how much bigger the virtue for the salat would you count? After the first 5 usul-e-din, or the first only 5 usul-e-din, the first thing that comes up in the furu-e-din is the salat. So nothing could top that virtue of salat. And we see therefore taking good care of salat is one of the biggest duties of a Muslim. Treat it as so that it becomes delight of your eyes, not a burden upon yourself, something you look forward to when the time for it arrives. Salat is a virtue itself, and then there is the time when it has the highest virtues when it should be performed. So obviously salat itself has this highest virtue among the all ibadat, but then when you perform it, it also couples with the virtues of this salat. So obviously perform at the fadilat, time of fadilat, will definitely couple with the highest of the virtues. We will count some of these benefits from the book known as Anwarul Nu'maniyya. Couple of virtues over here. It says salat at its prime time travels upwards in the form of that which is bright and beautiful. It prays the salat, prays for the performer, and says, you protected me by performing me on time, hence Allah will protect you as well. The salat is making the dua for you. It travels upwards, su'udi ufuqi, it goes upwards, and then it is making a dua on your behalf. You protected me, you took care of my time, that you did not neglected me, that you did not look over when the time had arrived, you were busy with something else. You protect me, Allah will protect you in the same fashion. Second, it says that Imam of our time, Imam Mahdi Ajjalallah Ta'ala Fajr Sharif, and the other righteous people perform their prayers on time. Can you imagine the Imam does not perform his prayer on time? It would not be something which would make sense. Imam of the Ummah. Yes, we will explain the exceptions. There's always exceptions to everything. But Imam, you would say, Imam would perform his prayer on time. There's no doubt that Imam performs his prayer on the time. And Imam of our time, definitely for that matter. Forget about the Imam of the time. A lot of righteous people also perform their prayers on time. So it says Imam of our time and the other righteous people perform their prayer on time. If ordinary people like you and I also perform it on time, our salat will travel upwards alongside with their salat as well. So when they're performing it, and we know for sure that their salat definitely travels upwards towards the Balagha of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you also perform your salat at the same time, your salat will also be coupled with their salat, and it will also be traveling upwards. If there was any shortcoming in our prayer, it will be overlooked since it's going in a group of the elite company of Imam of your time, and as well as all the other righteous people of your time. Either all are accepted or all are denied. And we can know for sure that the salat of our Imam will never be denied. Therefore, if you perform your salat on time alongside with the salat of the Imam of your time, your salat will definitely have this acceptance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Salawat bhi Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. This is why salat in congregation is highly recommended. The thing that you perform every single week when you come over here. But make a habit of performing it on every single day. Once a week, yeah, it's a good thing. You get the reward for that. But you have this opportunity, you have this place where you can do it on daily basis, on time, in congregation. What more could you ask for? Its acceptance is inevitable because congregation takes care of the shortcomings of an individual prayer. Rather, it increases in the thawab for it as well. For example, 2 rakat by a married person equals to 70 rak'at by a person who's single. So all those who are single over here, I don't see anyone, but all those who might be single over here, it is a point of taking heed that salat, you're praying 70 rakat is equal to a person who's sitting next to you who might be married. So this is the virtue that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to this salat. Other places it says the person who uses perfume, itr, when he comes to salat, his salat is 70 times better than the person who's performing. Or 70 rakat or his 2 rakat is equal to the person who has not applied perfume. And that's why you see, a lot of people are offering you itr. Sometimes we step back and say, no, I don't want it. I don't want this itr upon me. No, go ahead and use it. Because with the itr, with perfume or any type of perfume, why? The reason behind perfume is because you're sitting so close to the individual. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to smell good, so the person who's sitting next to you does not get repelled by that. And thirdly, it says, and also the one who gives sadaqah before performing the salat, as opposed to the one who doesn't give sadaqah before performing the salat, their salat is also, compared with 2 to 70. So we see all of these 3 things among the congregation. If one person has given sadaqah, if one person has performed or put on the perfume, or if one person is married among the congregation, then all of these 3 sawab will be included in it. And therefore, even if you do not possess any of these things, your salat will be traveling with such elite group. And definitely it will have this acceptance in the bargah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Salawat bhi Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. There are thousands, if I'm not mistaken, there are more than thousands of narrations in regards to salat. Something which we've been listening to from the very beginning, something which we are taught from the very childhood, even when it doesn't become wajib. Our parents start teaching the salat to us. It's something which is, embedded into us, inside us, and it is something which comes out. It's the first action among the wajibat. We see, I will not have time to go through many of them, so I will just remain content with one hadith in this salat, where Prophet of Islam, Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam said. It's a very strong hadith, as a majority of Prophet's traditions are. But in regards to those people who now live close to this masjid, Prophet said, قال رسول الله, من كان جار بيت الله ولم يحضر الجماعة ثلاثة أيام متواليات فعليه لعنة الله والملائكة والناس أجمعين. He says, someone who lives in the neighborhood of the masjid and doesn't attend congregation 3 days in a row, Allah and angels curse upon this person. If he wants to get married, don't give him your daughters, because Allah and his angels are cursing upon this person. If he becomes ill, don't visit him, because Allah and his angels are cursing upon this person. And remember, there's no salat, there's no fast, there's no zakat, and there's no hajj, there's no jihad for this individual, since none of these things will be accepted, because he missed his salat in masjid for 3 straight days. The person who is Jarul Masjid. Now this should not be a reason that we move away from the masajid. This should not give us the opportunity like, look, this is the duty now, so let me move as far away, so this is not an obligation. Back then, people were living close to the masjid. As soon as the azan was pronounced, they would hear the sound of the azan, and even after hearing the sound of the azan, they did not enter into the masjid. This hadith Prophet had gone ahead and mentioned to the people. Now the concept of neighborhood at that time was the one where they were right attached, their houses were attached with the masjid. Or masjid was something which was the centralized place, and this is where they went ahead and built their houses. So that was the concept of neighborhood back then, because they didn't have these wasail and resources to travel and whatnot very easily. Today the concept of neighborhood is different. You shouldn't think that just because I have to have a house right next to the masjid that I'm capable, or I'm under the category of being a neighbor. No, anyone who lives in the vicinity of the masjid, where you would consider that to be a neighborhood, you usually say, this person lives in my neighborhood. He might be 5 miles away from you, but they live in my neighborhood. This is the concept of neighbor which has evolved over the years, that a person living in the radius of 5 miles or 10 miles is considered to be your neighbor. Therefore, masjid over here is the same scenario, that if you are living within this 5 to 10 mile radius of this masjid, this also becomes an obligation upon you. Prophet says, again, I will repeat, this is in Jamad al-Akhbar, one of the very important books of hadith from our sixth Imam. It says that whoever misses 3 days, 3 congregations days in a row, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his angels will be cursing, and all the things that I had mentioned. Salawat bi Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. We see that Prophet would call upon Bilal and he would say, Arahna Bilal. Oh Bilal, relieve us from the worldly affairs by giving this adhan. And then Bilal would go ahead and give adhan. Why Arahna Bilal? Because we were so indulged into the worldly activities. As soon as we hear the name of Allah, now we are hastening towards this masjid. Prophet used to do that. Amirul Mu'mineen's face complexion would drastically change at the time of azan. And when he was asked why, he would reply by saying, came time for that trust which Allah sent towards the skies and the earth, and both excused of carrying it, and then it came towards Bani Nawal Insan. It came towards the human being. So it is a weight, it is that burden which even the skies were not willing to carry, the earth was not willing to carry. Now it is the duty and a trust upon the human being. Shouldn't my complexion be changing? This is how awliyaullah Masumin looked upon it. And then our fourth Imam, Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salatu wassalam, when he would ask the same question, he would reply to the same question in this fashion. He said, Ma tadruna bayna yaday man aqumo. You do not know whom I will be standing in front of. If you could understand that whom I will be standing in front of, then you will understand why my face complexion is changing. Imagine you have a meeting with someone who's higher in rank. You try to be on time. You don't try to delay. You take extra caution so that you don't get caught up into the traffic. And all those things go through your mind because this is a priority for you. When you are standing up in the Lord of the universe, Lord of all the lords in the world, you should be more cautious and you should take care of the time. Let's step back to the original text of Amirul Mu'mineen in this sermon and after counting these attributes from Muttaqeen. Why does Imam give preference to the nightly schedule as opposed to the daily schedule? He did not mention the daily acts of worship and anything. He only mentioned the nightly, because the acts of the day reflect on the acts of the night. Whatever you have done at night, that will be reflecting on what you do during the day. Day is like a page upon which the effects of nightly actions glitter. Either it will be glittering, or they will be, brightening, or otherwise it will be the other picture. From here we can understand that Imam didn't give preference to the night over the day without any reason. No, there was a reason. That's why he says, Ta'alina li ajza'il Qur'ani yurattilunaha tartila. Reading portions of the Qur'an and reciting it in a well-measured way. Over here, there are more things that I need to discuss, but I'll keep it for another time. Just to summarize as to how blessed we are with the wujud of a masjid. We don't realize that. 2 things that Imam is mentioning in this particular part of the khutbah. He says performance of the congregation prayers, performance of the nightly prayers, and Imam is mentioning recitation of Quran. Both of which could be attained if you came on a regular basis to masajid. This masjid right here, as well as all the masajid in the world, they would give you the same thing. It's worth mentioning that masajid provide these 2 recommendations of Prophet. Prophet also mentions, he says, the person who recites the Quran and the person who performs the congregation. He said congregation recitation of Quran is given and it is attained in going to a masjid, especially this masjid right here, which invites people to pray in congregation on daily basis, and every salat which is performed over here, and every Maghrib which is performed over here, there's a recitation of Quran. So both things are being coupled over here. You do not have to look any further. You do not have to go any far distance. You just turn towards this masjid, and both of those things are available for you right in front of you. So that tomorrow you cannot say that, I was willing to go, but there was not an institution which would provide what Prophet was recommended to us. Salawat bheji Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So many people around the world might not have what you all do in your possession. We didn't have this place, a few years ago. Now we do. Now that it is here, we have this opportunity. Let's make best for it. And if you can contribute little with your pockets, then try to compensate it with your presence in the masjid. So I'm not saying if you contribute a lot with your pockets, you should be less in your presence, but it goes either way. So it is an opportunity, obviously. And then just to summarize and to end it with the examples, that these examples are for people like you and I who are drowned sometimes into the worldly affairs and as well as materialism. What do? We are Bani Insan. We have this habit. We have to earn, and then sometimes we lead into earning more and more. Although it might be sufficient for us, but then we lean into earning more and more. What do? This is the fitrat of insan. But these things that are in our surrounding give us an opportunity to take a break and step away from it. Hence, Imams compare worldly things with the acts of goodness. Imam gives example, for example, he says, وَالْمُسْتَمِعُ آيَةٍ مِّن كِتَابِ اللَّهِ خَيْرٌ مِّن ثَبِيرٍ ذَهَبًا. He said the one who listens to the verses of Quran is better than being rewarded with a mountain made of gold. Now, obviously, if you're given a mountain made of gold, how excited you and I would be for that. But Imam is given an example in comparison to that just listening to the Quran. If you're unable to read, come and listen to the Quran over here. It is as if someone was giving you a mountain which was made of gold. Just imagine the value of the mountain made of gold. And then not just that, you go inside this mountain and in the mines you find the gold. Now the whole mountain would be made out of gold if that was given to you. Imams are given these examples because they understand how deeply we are engraved or we have attached ourselves to the worldly affairs and materialism. And that's why they compare these things. Problems arise when people are unable to do a recommended action and then compared with something else that they already do. For example, a person would say that, I do a lot of charity. So, these things that are recitation of Quran or the, listening of the Quran, yes, it has individual effects. I do something which is far beyond that. I help others, which is much better in comparison to reading and listening to the Quran. Obviously, this comparison is something where we are mistaken. Everything has its own value. Everything done for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with sincerity and khulus has its value. But you cannot go ahead and compare, because all of these things, you pick on whichever one you want to, there will be something which will lead you towards your salvation. We look at the books of Mafatihul Jinan, we say there's so many du'as in it. Dua for morning, dua for evening, dua for afternoon, dua for night, and then even in night time there's so many du'as. What does that mean? Oh, I have all day long to go ahead and keep on reading these du'as? I think I've mentioned it before over here. No, the simple thing is, you have a flight daily from New York to Los Angeles. There's a flight that goes 9 in the morning, 10 in the morning, 11 in the morning, 12 in the morning. Every hour there's a flight. Do you take all of those flights? No, you take the one which suits you perfectly. All of these things and recommended actions are there so that you do not have an opportunity to say that there wasn't a recommended action the time that I was available. The time that you have availability, you should go ahead and utilize it so that it fits your needs. Salawat bi Muhammad wa ala إن أحسن الحديث وأبلغ الموعظة كتاب الله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر.